Today, John Orlin is on and is going to demo his retirement planner and also his cash flow forecast solutions live. These two solutions were created more than 6 months ago, and so we're really overdue for a demo on these. And we're really excited to have so many people here who are interested. And Heather and I also haven't done one of these webinars in probably close to a year. So let's just review some of the basics of how these webinars work. The community webinars are designed to go beyond the basics. There's also a foundation webinar that is more for new users and sort of just the basics of using Tiller. This is also set up as a time to connect. So we're going to review a tool, solution, or workflow, but at the end we'll have Q&A where we can engage on what we demoed, but also anything else kind of, again, beyond the basics of using Tiller and these solutions. Let's go next slide here. If you have any questions, feel free to use the Zoom controls at any time to ask your question. We're going to save the Q&A for the end of the session, and we'll start with questions about what was demoed. But again, at the end, if you have any other questions related and we have time, we'll definitely jump into that. This is our schedule today. We're going to start by taking an opportunity to talk about the sort of our updated vision for the Tiller community and the Tiller Community Solutions add-on. I'm going to demonstrate adding the Tiller Community Solutions add-on, and then also inserting the templates that John's going to demo, and then John's going to do the demo, and then we'll have Q&A. So let's go into the community vision updates. This is a great opportunity to catch you guys up on some changes and kind of how we imagine all this stuff working together. As you probably know, the Foundations template is where most users start, and that's supported by our excellent customer success team led by Heather. And other templates, those in the community and also the Tiller Community Solutions add-on, are supported in the community forums. While many but not all of our of the early templates that you see in the community were built by the Tiller Money Labs team, we'd like to start better recognizing and promoting solutions built by individual builders in the community. And to reflect this change, we've renamed the Tiller Money Labs add-on that you might have had for many years to be the Tiller Community Solutions add-on. And if you had the add-on installed, hopefully it wasn't too jarring the day that it wasn't in the menu anymore as Tiller Money Labs. It just kind of abruptly changed in your add-on menu. So we've built, let's start with a new template gallery that we've built into our marketing website. I'll just do a quick demo of that here. Heather, is this showing up okay? Or John? Okay, cool. So you can find this now under resources, free templates. And you'll see there's essentially 3 pages here. Today we're going to demo the retirement planner, but there's plenty of information about screenshots and information about kind of what these templates can do for you. Is that still showing okay, Heather or John? Okay,
yep.
Great. Let me see what else. We've also set some guidelines for community-built solutions, and now have a new self-administered community badge that will help you identify templates that are shared in the community that are built to these standards. And I can just show you that real quick. So again, if you're a builder, these are the guidelines. Happy to answer questions. This is pretty new content, but there will be this badge, and we're hoping that when you see that badge, you'll sort of be able to trust that it's going to work well with the Tiller sort of data architecture, and also protect your privacy and those kind of things. Let's see real quick here. So we've rebuilt the, oh shoot, I went forward one slide. We've rebuilt the Tiller Community Solutions add-on. I told you we've renamed it. We've also added a new home screen that's much more focused on discovery, management, and helping you with solutions with some of the tools that you are used to a little bit over on the side. We don't have this yet, but we hope to start sharing curated community builders content. So taking submissions from users and actually sharing them from within the tool, and leveraging some of the workflows that you've come to leverage with version management, restore, update, leverage that tooling for some user provided content. And then we also have a call to action to share solutions in the add-on now. So let's start with a demo. So I'm going to switch over to a sheet that's in the state that I think many users are at when they're kind of ready to start using Tiller Community Solutions. So they have gotten a foundation template, they've added some accounts and data using Tiller Money feeds, and they're ready to do more. So that's where we are right here. So I've got this retirement planner webinar sheet. This is actually not linked to Tiller. We've just kind of shoehorned in some data, but otherwise it should be similar to the state of many of your sheets. If you look here, there's not yet Tiller Community Solutions. So let's go to Manage Add-ons here. Type in Tiller. Here it is, Tiller Community Solutions. So click here, Install. It needs permission, so it's going to tell you what scopes you are going to. Sorry, dog barking. What scopes you're going to be authorizing the add-on to use. I'm going to press Allow. And it's installed. So once we get to this point, we should have in the add-ons menu now Tiller Community Solutions. We're going to open the sidebar, and you'll see kind of the new look of Tiller Community Solutions if you haven't already. I'm sorry, I don't know how that happens right this second.
It's okay, Randy. We're all used to her. She's going crazy with the mail person.
Yeah, the mail person's probably coming right now. So there's a couple things on your first run you're going to need to sort of review and agree to. We have our privacy policy. I encourage you to read that, accept and continue. If the spreadsheet you're in is not linked, you're going to see this screen basically recommending that you start a free trial. You don't have to have a linked spreadsheet to use these tools. You'll just see this sidebar when it launches, and now finally we're in the main sidebar. So there's some new things that you'll see here. We've got 4 tabs across the top: Explore, Manage, Tools, and Help. 3 of these are focused on solutions. So Explore is where you're going to discover and install new solutions. Manage is where you're going to see the templates essentially that you have already installed. You can see what version they are, if there's an update available. And Help, for example, if I go to monthly budget, is where I'm going to be able to learn more about a solution that I have selected. So if I click over to yearly budget, I'll be able to see a screenshot, visit the community help on that topic. So right now for this demo, right now this is going to pre-select a feature. There's 2 ways to get a template. One would be to come down here and there's actually a tag for retirement. Another way would be to search on it. And this is going to select the retirement tool for us in the Explore sidebar, and we're going to add this to the spreadsheet. One thing to note on this one is that it actually has a dependency. There's a cash flow forecast sheet that it's also going to install. There are some of the templates that are available within this tool that require sheets that you might not already have, and one of the nice features of this install workflow is that we'll add the sheets that are needed to get all the way up to a fully functional solution. So I'm going to press Add to Spreadsheet, and you'll start to see these new sheets kind of, hopefully. There we go. So they're starting to come in. So we've got these 2 new sheets here. And then when the install is complete, it's going to jump over to this help screen, which I showed you earlier that kind of shows you help content on whatever sheet is selected. You'll also notice now that this has been added to the Manage tab, and you can see which version is in here. You can also link to some help here. So I think that is my cue to let John take over. You ready, John?
Yep, I'm seeing the sheet there.
Okay, I'm going to stop the share here, John, and then you can take over.
Okay. Okay, are you guys seeing my screen?
Looks great.
Of the retirement planner?
Yeah.
So that I'm actually working on the same sheet that it's good for collaboration. I'm working on the sheet that Randy just loaded from the edit on, and I wasn't sure if it was going to load for mine as well, but it did. So that was pretty cool. So I'm gonna walk through the retirement planner sheet that we built earlier this year, and it is related, as Randy said, to the cash flow sheet. and we'll start with the retirement sheet, and you'll see how we'll hit the cash flow sheet. And if you take a quick look at the line right now, that's not very good, because it's like starting very low and then it's going negative. And the reason for that is because the cash flow sheet, which we'll take a quick look at, right now, the way that the default cash flow sheet is showing, you're down almost like $400,000 over there, and that's what's flowing through to the retirement planner sheet. So they are related, and that's what's kind of going on right now. But I just wanted to, let me just give a quick little overview of what the retirement planning sheet is, and what it's not. And it was designed to handle lots of scenarios. I mean, everyone has their own different way of their assets and cash flow and things like that. And it was kind of hard to try to get something that would work for as many people as possible, is what we hope. But at the same time, it can't, there are some things that it just can't do. It's a tool, let's call it. And the other thing about it is there's a lot of numbers on here that's going to show you the future of what it's projecting. And it's your other tiller sheets, your transactions, those are real transactions that have taken place. But on the retirement planning sheet, this is just a projection. These numbers, we're going to make an assumption, and you get to change your assumptions. So you could say, well, I think my growth rate of my investments is going to be 7.5%. Well, your growth rate is probably not going to be 7.5% every year as planned. So it sort of just gives you, it's different than other tiller sheets, which are real numbers. Usually, your account balance is a real number. These are not real numbers. These are just projections, and you kind of got to look at it in that mode, rather than that this is exactly going to be what's going to happen. It's projecting into the future. And just one other caveat about it is, it doesn't deal with taxes. Now your sheets may, your foundation sheet may deal with taxes, and we can talk a little bit later about how that works out. And it also makes an assumption that, so it calculates a value of your investments for every year going forward. And it assumes that if you have extra money, that money goes into, like, if you made money from your cash flow, it assumes that money goes into the investments in the next year. Or if you've lost money, well, then you have less money available for investments. So that's kind of it kind of makes sense, and that usually can happen, but it may not always happen. But those are some of the assumptions that it makes. And there's more details. If there is a document that maybe you guys have seen on the community page, which is kind of a wiki or a how to use it. And that page, which I encourage you to look at, maybe we'll share the link, gets into some of these assumptions. So there are a bunch of assumptions built into this.
Hey, John.
And yes.
Just real quick note. Most of the new templates that have been updated with that Tiller community badge below say learn and discuss. And if you click on that URL, it'll jump you right over to the wiki page for most of them.
Oh, how nice is that? Yeah. So there you go. Very cool. So that's the I can get right to the template page from that in one or two clicks. So that, yeah, excellent. Okay, wow. Everyone see that in the upper right over there. So, okay, well, so I think what I want to do then is go over how you might use the sheet, and the sheet does come it does have some values preloaded in, but then you can change it and adjust it. And we also, as I said, we'll take a look at the cash flow sheet, which also it gives you kind of an example of how you might use it. So there are values loaded in there, and that's why it's not just like zeroed, because we are using it. And I should also and we'll see this, but this sheet and the cash flow sheet uses information that you have on your budget, which is in your category sheet. But we'll get to that. So the first rule, which is kind of applies to a lot of tiller sheets, and it's pretty important, is that only change numbers that are in the green cells, because there's a lot of formulas in there, and there's a bunch of other things. And if you try to put in numbers that are not in the green cells and put in some other ones, you might be breaking formulas, or you might be causing problems to the sheet. So usually when we see that people are having trouble with the sheet, it's they might have put data in places where the sheet really does not like that. So let's just kind of go through the green blanks here. So we let you put in your birth year and your spouse year if you want, because down here, starting in 2021, well, it might be nice to know what age people are. So I'll just kind of throw in 1980, let's say, and 1975 there for your spouse. So as you see, that populated the ages in the chart below for each year. So if you want to use it, you can. It's kind of helpful, but certain things happen at different years, financially perhaps. So that gives you that. So then the next section is what we're calling your investment yearly growth rate and blended. And what that is and it starts in the present year one, and you're making an estimate on what rate are your investments going to grow at. And we're not, we did look into trying to say, well, this account's going to grow at this rate, and this account's going to grow at that rate, and it was getting a little too complicated to make the sheet work for everybody. So what number you put in there, and then you can change that number pretty easy to see what happens at different growth rate levels. So it's more like, again, it's a modeling thing, but some people say that stocks grow, if you look back historically, 7% or 10%, or with dividends, or what, that's kind of for you to decide and you to play with what rate you want. Now maybe as people get older, their portfolio might become more conservative, so you might have less riskier things in it, perhaps. So what we do is we do give you the option to adjust that growth rate. So here you can see it's set to start at 7.5% of your investments to grow at, but in 2030 it goes down to 6%, and 2040 at 5%. So if I wanted to change, let's say I want to change that to say I'm going to get 8.5%. Now you can see that just updated down in column J over here. It just updated the first part to 8.5%. And let's say I want it, it's maybe it won't be till 2035 till it changes. Well, now I just made that change, and it flows into the chart down here. I should point out that this chart down below, you shouldn't. It's not in green, so you shouldn't change any of those numbers. You'll use cells in green, and they'll get reflected by changes in that part. If you put in some numbers manually down there, it's going to break things pretty fast. So anyway, so you can set a growth rate and change it in the future. And then we also gave you another scenario where we said, well, maybe I might get 10%. Or maybe it would be much lower and at only 3%. And again, those numbers are changeable. So we give you the option to put in an upper range and a lower range of growth rate. And I should point out that those growth rates don't change in the future years. They would always stay at 10%, let's say, by using those. Just for what it's worth, I should mention that we did consider, there's a thing, it may be over people's heads, or some people may be familiar with it, but it's called like a Monte Carlo scenario, where you throw out lots of different options of doing this based on historical data. And we did look into that, and it was just a little bit above what calculations could do on a spreadsheet. And so that was kind of our way to kind of handle the Monte Carlo scenarios, giving you a range of high and low. And then another option is that some people might might not withdraw, you might not retire. Let's say this example is using at 2040 is when you're going to retire. So you might not use that, you might not have any withdrawals. Your investments are going to grow, but you're not going to withdraw any of that money. You're not going to plan to withdraw any of that money. And any money before, in this example, 2040, you would put back into your investments. You wouldn't remove it from your system. So we let you set a withdrawal rate of what percentage you can withdraw, and the folks that are in the fire community or things like that, they're 4% is sometimes called the safe withdrawal rate. You can make that number what some people like 3%. You can make that number whatever you want, and also the year that you want. So and now the next part, let's to the left of the sheet is your assets. So what we do is I'm going to take a quick look. Okay, so the foundation budget by itself doesn't, it includes a account sheet, but it's sometimes hidden. You might not see that. I mean, those numbers will show up in other places, and maybe your net worth or some other sheets. But you do have an account sheet as part of it, and I don't see it below because it's kind of grayed out. But if I click on it, oops, no, actually. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean accounts. Balances. I got them confused. Balance is a list of your accounts. So the account sheet is if you want to make changes to how they're grouped and things like that. So I got a little confused. But anyway, on this balance sheet, you can notice that I have 3 different test asset accounts: a checking account and 2 investment accounts, and they're there because of your balance history, and that you've added those accounts to Tiller, let's say. So let's go back to the retirement planning sheet. So down here, this sheet takes a look at what your assets are, your balance accounts, and I can add or not different accounts that are on there. So I'm going to select that investment account, then I'm going to also select this other investment account, and you'll notice that it pulls in its current value. So it goes and it goes. So you don't have to enter what these numbers are. It will automatically pull your current asset account level. Now, the only other thing is that we give you the option to say, well, and let's put in the checking account there as well. So we also give it, so the sheet doesn't include these assets until you make them active, which is kind of an interesting, good feature, because maybe you want to include it, maybe you don't. So let's make those 2 investment accounts active, but I'm not going to make the checking account active. So it will. You can see we got 50,000 plus 75,000, so that's 125,000, and that's why that number is your starting amount of your investments. One little catch is that we're in September, so the growth rate of 8%, we're not going to apply in the first year. From that value now of your investments. Well, you're not going to get an 8.5% annual rate because there's only a couple months left. So for the first year, we actually prorate the gain of that 8%. So you see it's only like 3,000, whereas the next year it's 13,000. I mean, it went up a little bit as well. But there's a little catch, and we feel that's pretty fair because you don't have the full year to get that gain. And then there's another way to add assets. And if you wanted to add assets that maybe you're not tracking on Tiller, or you wanted to put in manually yourself, you can add, so I'm going to say investment 3 over here, and let's give it $100,000, and then let's make that active. And now that just added to the list as well. So now we're up to 225,000. So you're able to add asset accounts, which affect your, the value that you have for retirement. Up here, so now I'm going to move to the chart section. So you can set. I mean, this is sort of this is a goal. This basically determines how you can see the yellow, I guess, line over here at 1,000, but I could and the goal is not reached, it's telling us. Let's say I change it to 1.5 million, so that just moved it up to the yellow line to there. So it kind of gives you a target if you want a target of where you're going for, and you get some indication. I think there's some more detailed message. Maybe we'll see that as we play with this here. You can also now see how there's a green line for the upper range of the growth and a red line for the lower part, and then the middle black line is this 8.5%, 6%, 5% as your main scenario. So it's kind of also giving you a range of what you're expecting in the chart up there. I'm going to take a quick look at the chart down below, and then just so you understand what's happening there, and then we'll move probably on to maybe the cash flow sheet. So let's just take a look at each year. So we got the year that we're in, and it's always you can't really do the past, it's about the future, so it should always just go to the current year value. As you saw, we added in the ages of you and your spouse. We take the investments at the start of the year. So for the first year, it's the ones that we've activated and set up on the left side. We take the investment growth rate that you've set up in the investment growth rate box. And then that's just math. That's just saying, well, and first year it's prorated, but the second year it would be 8.5% of what you started with. That's going to be your investment gain. Now then the next column is the withdrawal rate, and you can see we didn't start withdrawals till 2040, so there's no withdrawals up until then, and that's that withdrawal column. And then there's the cash flow column. So this cash flow column is basically what your cash flow forecast is from the cash flow sheet. It doesn't, you can't change those numbers. You shouldn't change those numbers manually. But that's taking the values from the cash flow sheet, which again, we're going to get to in just a couple minutes here, but it's just pure adjusting your amount of available investments based on the cash flow sheet. And then we threw in this other column here, which is called investment adjustments. Now if you're not able to, if you feel like you need to make an adjustment in a future year, maybe you're adding assets or you're whatever scenario you want to use for that investment adjustments, you'll notice up at the top over column S over here, there's like a box to hit. So we can open that up, and now you can add, you have to pick a start and an end, and you can have to make it active, and you can add an adjustment. So for this example, we've added $10,000 an adjustment to those years, and we've included a $10,000 subtraction in the other years, and you can see how they have folded the numbers into the chart. So that's kind of a flexible. Randy, did you say something?
Just real quick, you're doing great, but just want to do like about a 10-minute time check to Q&A.
Okay, I think I'm on target then. That's good. So that's the investment adjustment. And then give me a 5-minute time check too, or 2 minutes. Anyway, so if we add up all those numbers and subtractions and the ones that are added and subtracted, we get a yearly net gain or loss. And then we take that yearly net gain or loss and add it to what we had at the beginning of the year to see what we have at the end of the year. And then what we have at the end of 2021 becomes the starting value for 2022. So that's kind of how that whole chart, it's a lot of numbers, I know, but and those numbers are used to make the line chart above. I'll just add quickly there is a whole lot of hidden columns that you could open up. If I'm not going to do it, but next to column Y, there's a little like a triangle. And that you could see because we're also making all those calculations for those other scenarios. So they're in the hidden part, and if you want to go play in there just to understand how it's working, you can, but you don't have to. Now if I want to close that adjustments, I just hit the box and it closes. So now let's go on to the cash flow sheet. So I'll switch on to that. And the cash flow sheet works with your budgets. So it takes a look at the different budgets, and the example that we're using in our, I'm going to look at the yearly budget sheet here. So we had the budgeted cash flow for the year. Actually, in this example, there's $72,000 of income and $72,000 of expense. So there's no change. So if I go into the cash flow sheet, let me, that on its own, you can see in row 11, there's $72,000 of income and $72,000 of expenses, so there's no cash flow. So if you were just to base it on what's happening in your budgets, there'd be no change, and your cash flow would be 0 going forward. But we should also say is that of that $72,000, so we let you set in the settings, what is your income? Do you think your overall income is going to grow by? Let's say it grows by 2%, but maybe your expenses grow by 3%. So just by putting in those numbers, that's taking that $72,000 of your income and 72 budget, and move every year, it's growing them by a certain percent. There's inflation, so that's kind of adding the inflation in for your expenses. You could keep them at 0, or you could grow them, and that's sort of up to you. But then the key part about the cash flow sheet is these life events. And basically, we let you make a projection into the future of, you might sell your mortgage, or you might change your paycheck, or something can happen down in the road that would affect your income or your expenses. This doesn't deal with transfers. Transfers are a separate thing, and we're not looking at the transfers here. But for all your income or your expenses, we let you as an option. So let me just go through one of the rows. We give you a start year and an end year, and you got to give it a start and an end. You also have to make it active, but this is kind of nice because you could try out different scenarios. Well, what happens if I sell down the mortgage, or what happens if I don't? You can see what the results are from those type of changes. You can give it a name of the event or a category, and there is a special case that this gets a little complicated, and the FAQs explain this a little bit better. But if you name the category the same name as one of your existing categories, then this life events section takes over, and it doesn't use your values from the category sheet. It now uses what you put in these columns, and then it becomes bold, so you know that you're dealing with a category name that already exists. And more information in the community post will explain how that works a little further. So for each life event, you give it a note so you can explain it a little better when you look at it. You also give it an amount every year if it's for multiple years. And then you could also give it a change, because maybe you're going to get a raise or cost, every 2% growth for your paycheck. So you can, if you give it 0, it's going to be the same 80,000. But if you give it a 2% plus, it will increase it going forward. And then we do put in this white column that if you've picked something that is a category, it will show you what the budget is for your current year. So there's $72,000 of your paycheck in the current year. This is kind of saying that it's overriding it, and so it's to 80,000. I mean, maybe 72 would be this year, and it might be more accurate to start next year at 80 or something like that, and begin to grow it. But that's kind of how you would put in different life events to adjust your future income and expenses. How am I doing on time, Randy?
We'll go over at 12:40 Pacific, so about 4 minutes left.
Okay. Well, then up here you do see a chart of what's happening with your running cash flow, but you also can chart different things. You could chart each year? Like what is the plus and minus happening? I mean, what we're saying is the running cash flow is it's every year and included, and then the next year it's the year one and year two, and year three is 1+3. But this would let you see what is your what's happening each year by itself. So you have a couple different ways to look at the chart. And I would say that let's just take a little click over here onto the check mark. You can, if you wanted to see some of these numbers of what's, I mean, you can see them in the chart, but if you wanted to see actually what's happening year to year to year, you can open up the hidden part and you can see that's each year, and that's the cash flow of that particular year, I believe. I should also mention that let's say you wanted to go out 40 years into the future, you could change the number over here and we could have 40, and now it just added 40 years. And by doing that, the retirement planner, let's just double check that. So this now goes to 2061. So by making that change, now the retirement planner also goes 40 years out. So, you know, those two sheets are talking to each other and working together to use the same information and stuff like that. So that's kind of the ins and outs. You know, this is a bit of a broad overview. People might have specific questions that we can get to, but you know, just only change the green, and you know, there's tons of space. We added a bunch of extra space on that sheet for lots of future life events that you might consider. I'm just gonna close this up again here, just to hide
Great,
it.
John.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think, and that's pretty much what I wanted to get to.
So we do have some questions already in the Q&A. If you have other questions, get them into the Q&A. I'll just start reading them out, and then whoever's most appropriate to respond can do so. And John may demo a couple other things. If there are questions that are a little bit too complex to talk through or demo right now, we may defer those. And the benefit of getting your questions in the Q&A tool is that I'm able to generate a report, and in the resources that we send out tomorrow, you'll get those questions, and then between John and Randy, they can write out some detailed answers. So if there is something that's a little bit complicated, we may defer that and answering it there. So, all right. So starting out, Michael asks, how do you recommend modeling inflation so you can play with different inflation amounts and impacts? Did you guys get that? I got my Wi-Fi unstable message. Did you get that whole question?
You froze up a little bit, but I did hear all of it. So and I would say, so
okay.
There's two answers. One, on the cash flow sheet, it's very simple. I think I'm still sharing the screen, but that expense budget change amount, that percentage, that's what you're predicting your overall inflation rate would be. But if different categories you think might grow at different amounts, well, then you could put them in as life events, and using that column, you could set different inflation rates for them from that point. So I wouldn't, inflation off the top of my head, I don't think it would be part of the, you know, in the retirement planner sheet. By putting it on the cash flow sheet, it's going to fold into the retirement planner.
Got it.
Makes sense.
Good.
Great. Thanks for that one. All right. So someone asked, I'm semi-retired, 52/Coast Fire, and the sheet seems to be intended for those fully employed and contributing to retirement. Could you talk about the sheet in this scenario? So semi-retired.
Well, I think it works for both, actually. I'm in your semi-retired group there. I mean, I think you can, if you're not withdrawing, if you don't need to withdraw, like, you know, when you're retired, you may not have regular income from your paycheck and things like that, so you would need to withdraw from your retirement. So you could, you know, you would use the set a withdrawal rate at the year that maybe you're fully retired. I mean, you may also have enough, maybe if you luckily or you've worked hard, you may whatever, you may have enough money in your investments to the dividends and the gain that your investments are doing might mean that you don't have to pull money out and do a withdrawal from your retirements. And I think the sheet would actually handle that, because if the gains are greater than the withdrawal, you're still going to have a gain for it. So I have to probably look at your individual situation, but I think the sheet would handle folks who are both retired now and withdrawing, or not withdrawing, or retiring in the future. Randy, do you have anything you would add to that?
I think everything you said makes sense, and I think if we want to go deeper on this, we should probably just start a topic in the community.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, Jen asks, is the other account section a good place to enter annual savings goals per year to capture planned additions to investments? Or it maybe looks like the investment adjustments might be the answer to her question. So an example is in 2021, 5,000, 2022, 6,000. And so is that what you would say, John? Is it the investment adjustments to enter annual savings goals per year to capture planned additions to investments? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I think it is wise to have savings goals per year, and maybe that some of that is on your monthly budget, or even per month, and that would be captured by your yearly budget or your monthly budget. But I don't know if I'm not sure how the retirement sheet actually would really capture, or this isn't looking at the goal. I mean, it's looking at one goal. The 1.5 million is the goal on this one, but I don't really, a goal doesn't really work into the sheet down below. It's you should have a goal, and maybe you would use this sheet to say, wow, I'm underwater. I'm in a certain year that I'm in trouble. So maybe I need to have a higher investment goal or something like that. And you might use it to kind of figure out, how much more money you might need. But I don't know if you would really put different goals into the sheet off the top of my head.
So she says a better example is how to add the annual IRA contribution.
Okay.
I would think the adjustments would make sense. You could just basically layer those in there. And then I also think that in sort of a similar way, favorability on your budget, if you have a savings goal, so essentially larger income than expense is going to flow in through the cash flow tool into this sheet, and that favorability would sort of translate to essentially increased investment, I think. Is that right, John?
And I think your savings, read the beginning of that for me again, Heather. Just use it, like she had an example of how it would flow into her.
Her example. Yeah, it's her beginning of her question is the other account section a good place to enter annual savings goals per year, but her example is the IRA contribution. To capture planned addition to investments.
Right. Yes. Okay. So actually, based on that, so her IRA contribution, it would most likely, you could do it different ways, but most likely I would consider that a transfer, because you'd be transferring it from a checking or savings account to transferring it to your IRA account. And because it's a transfer, that doesn't really affect your cash flow sheet. So it wouldn't, if you considered it an income or expense, some people might consider it an expense, but I think it's more of so if you consider it an expense, then it would probably show up as an expense on your on your budget, and then it would flow through. But that would not be my recommended way. I would consider that contribution a transfer. And then because of that, it wouldn't show up on the cash flow sheet. So you're absolutely correct that the place where you would put such a thing would be on the investment adjustments. I would add that value as an investment adjustment off the top of my head. Yeah.
Thanks, John. Hopefully that helps. Sure. Jen, let us know if not.
Let us know. Yeah.
Someone asks, please review the investment adjustment again. How did that window open? And so it's just that plus minus at the very top. John, if you'll just demo really quickly, that's how you can.
And let me hide these other guys here, just because usually they would be hidden. But then if you just plus or minus, plus is going to open it, and you'll see the adjustments. And I should make a point, and it's kind of following the last question, that the investment adjustments would be for things like transfers. They wouldn't be for income or expenses. If it's an income or expense, that really should show up somewhere on your budget or as a life event on the cash flow. So this is really for transfer type transactions between different accounts, that it would show up over there.
Got it.
I think, yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Next is from Steve. I'm not really understanding why I might use investment adjustments. Seems like large expenses like college are covered by cash flow sheet. Can you give an example? And I think it is that transfers thing you just explained.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that, I think that's exactly it. And you're absolutely right that like a lot of the things really should show up on the cash flow. If it involves income or expense, don't try to do it on the retirement planner sheet. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any follow-up on that, Randy?
No.
Okay, great. All right, Matt asks, shouldn't investment adjustment also be made for your regular contribution to retirement accounts, like your 401k employer match for each year? I think it's getting into that same vein of like your IRA contribution. I don't know if we want to speak more to that, or Matt, if that helps, or if it doesn't help, let us know. We're happy to.
Right. And I will say, I mean, when we were building it, we initially didn't have, I don't think, investment adjustments, but then we thought, well, how do we handle the things that people are talking about right now to get into it? And that's why we added the investment adjustments. But I guess in sort of in our head, I mean, in addition to handling transfers, maybe there was, every user might have their own particular reason for using it. So it can work for whatever you want to. I mean, it's just going to add a number or subtract a number. So you could use it however you best see it fit. But again, I would try to do income and expenses in another place.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we got a couple questions here from Laura and Mark about how can I make the sheet go out more years? And in the yearly growth rate table, can I add more years? I think the answer to both of those is the same. And there's two ways to do it. You demoed one of them, right? Do you want to show them again?
Yeah. So to make the sheet go out more years, you would change the cash and go in the cash flow sheet and change the number. Let's see what happens if we go to 50. So that looks like that did it. So if you wanted to change, if you wanted to add more investment growth rate future year changes, that's going to be a trickier one, because I believe if you just added a row, I'd have to look at it. There's things on the right side of the in the hidden part that if I just added a row, I'll see what happens, but I think there's a good chance that it might break things. It may not. I can't. Well, it doesn't look like it did anything obvious, but I'd have to check it. You could try adding it and seeing if things got a little funky, but I'd have to look into that to see if that would break things or not. I don't know if I could do that on the fly over here.
I would add, Mark, that if it does happen to work the way John just demoed it, try to add them in the middle, because there's a range there. And if you add on the end, it's not clear that you'll extend the range in the formula. So do it around, like, say, row 13 rather than after row 15.
Right. And I wouldn't do it in the top year either, because that's looking at different things as well. So you could try it. I can't remember if we made it work or not. There might be comments about it in the initial post. I can't remember.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so Jeffrey asks, have you examined the other free retirement forecast tools out there? Does this sheet have any major differences?
That's a great question. And Randy and we actually had some of the folks in the community help us build this sheet. We asked for some feedback in a post and said, well, what are people looking for? And we did do a big survey of what else is out there. And there's a lot of ways. I think, I mean, Randy, you could speak to this as well, but there was a lot of different ways to handle this. And so, and there's some that are more, I should mention, there's if you want to get super, there are paid services. I think one is like $100 a month, and it's done more than just spreadsheets, but you could figure out the tax rate of every investment and know which one to, you can get very detailed about it. So we did look at some of that, and there's others that just say, here's my savings rate goal, and they just want a savings rate goal, and they take that as an approach. And I mean, I think we found about 10 different ways of doing it, and I think one of our goals was, well, you're already putting in all your tiller information in your assets and your budget and things like that, and we tried to want to make a way to do it that took advantage of all that work that you have in your foundation sheet. So this in some ways this it ties, this takes advantage of all the foundation sheet and all your tiller data, and tries to use that so you don't have to manually type in all of your account values or what your budgets are and things like that. So we kind of felt this method would handle a good integration with tiller. And but I'll admit there's lots of different ways to do it, and which way is right or wrong, I don't know. I mean, some people may not think that this gets there, but hopefully others, we've had some pretty good feedback that they do feel it gives them a sense of things.
John, I just add, there's about 1 million ways to do this, and this isn't really supposed to be the best or most comprehensive ever. It's just supposed to be a way that integrates well with the data you already have in your sheet, and also is sort of generalized to be sort of accessible and helpful to a lot of people. It's definitely possible you can find something that's like more tailored to some approach that or methodology that is unique to you.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, and I would also say that there's limits of what a spreadsheet can do. I mean, I think there are other back-end systems where you could write a whole scripts and programs, and we this doesn't even use any scripts. This is all just done with formulas. I should mention that Randy helped me. I didn't even think certain formulas were possible. I don't know where it is, but there's one formula in here which is just like mind-boggling of to try to figure out how to do the power of whatever. There's some pretty crazy formulas in there. But I know at the same time, if you want to, you can modify it. If you understand some of those things, build your own changes to it or another version of it, and share that with us at the folks at Tiller. We're certainly open to all those things. Yeah.
Randy is quite the whiz with formulas, even on the fly. Jen in the chat is like, I had the same experience while working with Randy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just showing off here Randy's. I mean, I did a little bit
John
of it,
did
but
most
I think
of the work on this thing.
Yeah, but he got to a new level. I mean, just take a look at this formula here. I mean, that's like Greek, that's like,
We've got a few more questions. Let's try to get through these before we hit the top of the hour. This sounds like a fun one. If you were going to modify either the cash flow or retirement planner sheets, what future features do you think would be really cool to add? This is purely a hypothetical question that's along the lines of brainstorming for future things to add. So I guess just like feature, like if we were going to change it, like what features we add? And maybe that's just a good like community topic to see like what people think, but I don't know if the builder has any ideas, just having worked on it for probably like almost a year now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the right first answer is we would welcome what's in the community. I think just today someone had a question of how to deal with taxes, and they sort of said like, well, I have my different investment accounts, but I have to take out this, my IRA, I can't take out till I'm 60, so I would come out of here first. And how would I manage that? And we looked into it, and taxes was like was a can of worms, because there's just so many different rates, so many different scenarios. But the one thing I think that was sort of in the back of our heads, and I would almost recommend for folks would add this themselves, is you might want to make your own sheet up. I mean, you can see how much withdrawal is happening from your investments, but maybe there's a sheet which is, well, here's my investments, and which order do I withdraw them from, or would be due to tax reasons or age reasons or whatever. And maybe there's sort of a companion sheet that helps you figure out how to maximize where you would withdraw things. Now, there's a lot of different rules about that, so I don't know if we could come up with something that would work for enough people. But
Cool.
to me, I've had this concept of, to tie it in a little bit more on your investments would be one idea that I've had.
Cool. Thanks, John. One person notes that the rows 13 through 15 here on the retirement planner, can you add additional growth rates there? If not, we should make those white so that you're not trying to edit green cells that don't really have an impact. Can you add more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can add. I mean, I think we did we added a row,
We inserted
automatically,
one.
and I don't know if that broke
Yeah.
things, but the rows that are green, you totally can add a different growth rates to all the green rows.
Okay.
without
So
without adding rows or anything.
So Mark, that one, you can actually add additional growth rates in there, the ones that are already there that are green. So good eye on that, but it sounds like it should work. And then the last one here is cash flow forecast is not getting pulled into retirement planner sheet. Any ideas what I might have done wrong? I haven't changed anything outside of the green cells. Is there any reason stuff on the cash flow sheet might not flow into the retirement sheet that we know about, that we can quickly answer? Otherwise, we can probably take that one in the community.
I think the two most likely issues would be either a broken link, like somehow the sheets were either not installed in the right order, or one was deleted and re-added. Mm-hmm. And so in that case, the solution would be probably to delete both sheets out of the spreadsheet and then reinstall the retirement planner, and they'll go in the right order. The other possibility is that things are not checked as active in the cash flow forecast, and so essentially you think you're making changes, but you're actually not activating them. But either way, I think if either of those solutions don't work, just ask in the community, and we can take a look at it there.
Right.
Sounds
I think
good.
I think if you were to try if the first step I would try, I would try downloading 2 new sheets. Maybe you would save the archived ones. If you put some work in there, there's an option that lets you save the older ones and not just overwrite the sheet. So I would probably try that first to see if they're linking, and maybe you broke something in the name.
All right. Well, this has been great. We've had some good questions. I think we're at the top of the hour though. So unless there's anything last we need to wrap up with, I think this is our time slot for this.
Great job, John.
Thanks.
You really did a great job on those templates.
Yeah. Just remember these. The only thing I'd say is, like, I sometimes look at this and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be at this number in this year at this, and that is not what I mean. It's an estimate. It's not going to happen that way. But it just think of it that I just got to impart that. Don't start thinking these are totally accurate numbers. This is just a trend and a model. And I get fooled by that myself when I use it, but I would just keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely just, projections, ideas, some type of planning, forecasting. So
I'm going to leave you with one other, just the edit, is that it could work with 2 different retirements. So if you want to have different scenarios to follow out, you could make another copy of this sheet, and here's one scenario and here's another scenario, and you could just, it can handle multiple versions, I guess.
Yeah, so true. That was what one person expressed. They're going to use this to run a number of scenarios they've been thinking about. So definitely.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah. A lot of feedback that's been really helpful, and you did a great job, John. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time demoing this, and everyone that attended, thanks for attending, and look out for the email tomorrow with the link to resources and replay. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.